social movements.
Yeah.
You have the anti-war movement because of the Vietnam War. You have an exploding civil rights movement, of which the Takeover at Allen Building and the vigil the year before are some of the things that happened on this campus. And you have the beginning of women's rights movements. Well, I wouldn't say the beginning of it, because obviously it goes back many, many years when you get back to women's suffrage, but there is certainly a greater awareness of women's place in the world and in American society. So you have a lot of disruption going on there. I have literally seen tanks rolling in the streets of Durham.
Wow.
And people think, well, that, we think that society is coming apart at the seams now. And I do worry about that. But people were very, very divided over a series of issues at that time. So we thought that society was coming apart at the seams in the late 60s.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you have specific questions, I'll try to answer them.
Yeah, sure. But why did you see tanks? Why were tanks in Durham?
Well, there was sufficient unrest, and I think that was around the time of Dr. King's assassination. Literally, if you were a Duke student and you left Duke campus, you got arrested as soon as your feet hit the floor on the other side of the East Campus wall.
Wow.
Because this was based on the way the Durham community felt, and there's always been a sort of town-gown tension around any university, I think, but Durham has been, and isn't really much anymore, a pretty conservative community, and this was considered kind of a den of liberal iniquity, and people didn't want protests bleeding over into the community. And the National Guard was called out, and there were tanks patrolling the streets.
Wow. And were you part of a silent vigil?
No.
Oh. I was only asking because another group is doing a project on them. They're actually focusing on Oliver Harvey, but it's been really hard for them to actually find information on Harvey. But anyway, about the protest, did you hear about it happening before?
Yeah, and I don't know, this might be the one piece of information that you haven't had, and again, that's a long time ago, but there was a meeting called prior to the police coming in to retake Allen.
Yeah.
And people students who were in any kind of leadership situation were asked to attend that meeting, and I went because I was the president of one of the independent living groups. Okay. And we were told that the police were going to come and take over Allen Building by force if necessary, and we were asked to take that information back to whatever group we represented. And, you couldn't just blast out a warning, because there were no cell phones, there were no computers. That means of communicating that were pretty rudimentary at that time. And you certainly didn't want the police bursting out onto the quad. And that and people walking back and forth, class of boom, the policemen riot here. And I think there were probably several reasons for doing that. One was just to alert the community. Another was we were certainly asked to go back and tell people that this was going to happen. We were asked to encourage people not to be there because they didn't want people to be caught up in it unnecessarily. And you do always have people who go to anything like that just out of curiosity. And there certainly were people who did that. There were certainly people there who were intent on protecting the students who were inside Allen Building. And that's where the tear gas and people running around and getting hurt, more of that came out of that particular part of it. One of the things that I do remember, and I was not I was not hanging around trying to get into any trouble, but I was there. I did want to see what happened, and I did want to see if I could keep, if possible, keep people away from it as much as possible. One of the enduring memories that I have is seeing police officers with face masks down, gas masks on, and this is a very small detail, but nobody had on a nameplate. And in riot situations, people don't wear their nameplates because they don't want to be accountable for what happens. There was a lot of kind of random running around. And when tear gas gets thrown, people do stupid things. People picked up tear gas canisters and threw them back at the police, and tear gas canisters are very, very hot, and people got burned. Certainly people got tear gas in their eyes. The quad was, and I noticed this morning, and I guess I hadn't noticed that until today, there used to be chains along all of those walkways, and people fell over the chains as they were running, and especially if there was a cloud of tear gas that's in your eyes. And I didn't know this at the time, but somebody told me that some of the students who were there to disrupt the police action deliberately took advantage of the fact that students knew where the chains were, but the police didn't. And that there were, and I don't know if this was just brag, but they said that most of the injuries to police were caused by students running policemen into the chains and flipping them over onto the ground. I didn't see that as a deliberate thing. I saw that as chaos. But there certainly were people running all over the place, and there certainly were students getting tossed over those chains, and there certainly were policemen being tossed over those. And this, like I said, this is the first time that I've noticed that they really got some kind of small sections of that kind of on corners. But at that time, the chains ran the full length of the walkways.
How did you feel when you were on the quad? Were you so surprised by all the chaos?
Well, that's a good question. I hadn't thought about that. I knew it was coming, so I don't know that I was particularly surprised. I was at least savvy enough to stay far enough away from it not to get hurt. So, I don't know that I saw it. I mean, it was obviously chaotic, but it was, you're kind of in the moment, and it kind of is what it is. I think for people who were foolish enough to pick up a tear gas canister, because one of my friends and housemates was one of the idiots who did that, and I did end up taking him back to the residence hall and trying to help him, get his burns on his hand taken care of. So, but it was, you kind of did what you needed to do and tried to stay out of harm's way as much as you could.
And about the meeting right before the police came in, did you, was that something conducted by faculty, or was it student-led?
No, it was, I assume it was the dean's staff. It was from the administration. That was the administration's official notification to people that there was going to be a forcible removal of students if need be.
And did you know that the Allen protest was going to happen, in the days before, or you didn't know about it until it was
I don't remember. Not way in advance. There had been protests going on, and so I guess that was not a particularly big surprise. And certainly administration buildings had been taken over on lots of campuses, And the level of protest and level of disruption at Duke was less than what happened in a lot of places. So I knew that students had taken over the administration building before that meeting was held.
Yeah.
But not a lot of that. I don't remember that really specifically.
Do you remember what the aftermath was? How people felt about the protests after it had happened, after the police had come?
Well, I do think that there was a fair level of support for the students who had been in Allen Building, and there was a fair level of support for the things that they were demanding. I think it's hard to understand how isolated those students felt on campus. I think I had some rudimentary appreciation of that at the time. I have come to have a greater and greater appreciation of that as time has passed. I guess, and this is a very personal story, but I enjoyed my time at Duke, and I did well as a student at Duke, but I never felt completely at home at Duke.
Yeah.
About a third of the students on campus were receiving some kind of financial assistance, and I was one of those students.
Yeah.
So there were many people around me who were much more had many advantages that I had not had, and nobody ever treated me unkindly in that regard. So if you could feel a little isolated because you weren't as well off as the people around you, you can imagine how isolated you would feel if you were racially identifiable as someone who was very different from the vast majority of the students on campus. So I can see more and more as I grow older and older and hopefully have a little more life experience how very important it would have been to those students to have something like the Mary Lou Williams Center where, as a student over there that I talked to once said, where we could go and just be black. And I guess I certainly would not have thought of that when I was a 22-year-old college senior. So I think there was an appreciation of that on a lot of people's parts, but probably for those of us who were white, whatever our sense of not completely belonging, and I think when you're that age, you probably nobody feels like that anyway. But I think it was hard to appreciate how difficult that was for those students, and to appreciate how very important making those demands was.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Even though you knew it was dangerous to be on the quad, you were there to try to prevent some of the chaos, or just to see what was happening?
and to see. I mean, I felt a certain responsibility for the people that I lived with on campus, and sometimes if you can do that and say, don't be an idiot, come over here with me and let's at least get out of the line of fire here. And I think it would be dishonest not to at least admit that there's some level of curiosity about that.
Were you scared at the time?
No, I don't remember being scared. I might not have been smart enough to be scared.
Yeah.
But I had not been directly in that kind of situation, and I think when you're your age, I hope you're smarter than I am, it's hard to imagine bad things happening to you.
Yeah.
So I would not have been brave enough or foolish enough to be one of those people occupying the building, and maybe I should have been. Nor would I have been brave enough or foolish enough to be one of those people blocking the doorway
Yeah.
so that the police couldn't get in. But I didn't feel like I was in any particular danger, and I didn't feel like I was going to put myself in a position where I would be in any particular danger.
Did you know any of the people who went into the building?
There was one student that I had some classes with when I was a freshman who was in the building. I had not had other classes with him later on, so he was not someone that I knew well.
Yeah. Is there anything else you remember?
Not particularly.
Yeah, it was 50 years ago. Even for
It
the
was a
people who
long
were...
time ago, and you know, as I said, my role in that was pretty peripheral. Had anyone mentioned about having a meeting ahead of time to warn people about that?
No,
That may be
so,
the
yeah.
only detail that I could.
And also
add
the
to that.
details of the quad. Like, we haven't interviewed many people who were on the quad at the time because we interviewed people who were in the building. We also talked to Reed Kramer and Mark Pinsky. They were at the Chronicle at the time, but I don't know if they were on the quad. But
You read Kramer. I would have. That's really is a blast from the past. A name from a long time ago. He may well have been.
yeah.
But I don't know.
Okay. Well, thank you so
Okay,
much.
well,
This
thank
was
you very
really
much.
helpful.
Good luck.
Yeah.
And I will. So you think there may be some product by
Yeah, alumni weekend.
Alumni Weekend?
That's in April, right? April.
Yeah, I think it's the weekend of somewhere around the 14th. Well, I'll look out for that.
Yeah.
Well, good luck. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.